Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us and welcome back to the True Understanding podcast, where we dive deep with global workplace leaders to explore the strategies shaping the workplaces of tomorrow. I'm Rebecca Corliss of VergeSense, and I am joined by my co-host, Omar Ramirez of Collective. Today, we're talking to Remco Van Riet again, and we're joined by Peter Mostien from ING, and we're going to be digging into hybrid strategy, learning from end users, and really understanding what teams can learn from how ING is designing their future of work.
So if you could both, Peter, starting with you, just give your 20-second elevator pitch of what you do for a living to somebody who might be just starting in workplace or just starting or just nascently in the industry, it'd be amazing. And we can go from there.
Yeah, go ahead. So I'm Peter Mostien. Working already several years within the real estate business, and always worked most of the time, not always, but as within the corporate real estate. My background, I'm an architect as well. I worked for several years in the Belgian mail post offices, corporate real estate side, and then made the step to ING Bank, corporate real estate. And really, going from portfolio management, project management, up to workplace consultancy. And especially in those times, what we are now experiencing with pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and all the shifts and changes we have seen, it's quite exciting time.
My name is Remco Van Riet. I worked as an innovator for the past 10 years, mostly adopted lean startup methodologies for all the projects I did, whether it was for startups or corporates. In my free time, I like to travel the world. And furthermore, since this year, I can call myself an author.
Question for you, Peter, to start. Paint us a picture. What did workplace at ING look like 15 years ago versus today? And how are the focuses different now?
Yeah, it's quite different, I think. And we are quite lucky in the Netherlands. ING as a bank is of course has its roots and is based in the Netherlands, but we are a global company. And what we see not only within ING but the Netherlands and in workplace use is quite a front runner, I think, globally or comparing with other countries. I think already 15 years ago, the Netherlands started to apply desk sharing. Not everyone would have a desk when coming to the office. You share already your desk, and that's the shift we see in the last years. Is the amount of time spent in the office really highly decreased the last years. And that's why we think as well the purpose of coming to the office has completely changed, and the way we use this office when we are in the office is also completely changed.
That's really interesting. I'm curious, what do you think made it so Netherlands would be a front runner in this desk sharing world? What about it culturally actually brought that opportunity to adopt this really impactful strategy?
Yeah, there was another company, also a workplace consultancy company, who made a nice report and a study on comparing all the different countries, how they behave and how they look at management and how the cultural differences impact the way the office is designed. The relation between the staff and the management is also, I think, plays an important role in accepting desk sharing. And I think in the Netherlands, the relation between management and staff, the difference is not so big as, for instance, in more hierarchically organized countries. This makes that the acceptance of sitting in an open space and accepting to share your desk with your colleagues, and also we request also management to share their desk with their peer managers, or even with the staff, it's also part of our Orange Workplace concept.
Yeah, I think especially culturally, it's a big phenomenon. Dutch people don't like to be told what to do, so they are always trying to find the boundaries. We are known as loud, but I think also as being open, honest, and very direct. And I think that indirectly translates also in the working concept. Like, do I need to sit at the same desk every day? I think, the cultural phenomenon is there. I think like plays a huge part in why we can be called a front runner in these aspects.
Yeah.
Do you find that makes it easier for you to work in innovation in the Netherlands, Remco? Because of the very like forward thinking kind of like idealism a little bit?
Yeah, presumably, because I would say like nowadays I'm 31, but even when I just got started in this field, I was like in my beginning of my 20s, but I could still advise senior managers on certain aspects. And I think, especially what Peter said, the hierarchy doesn't play that much of a role. I think potentially you could have interns telling a CEO what they think you should do, and I think in some other countries that's unheard of.
Yeah. There's definitely countries where you would not do that.
Precisely. So I think we're very open-minded. I think it has advantages and disadvantages, but I think for this aspect, to experiment and try things out, it's a huge benefit actually.
Yeah. So let's dig into that a little bit. So paint us a picture. Maybe I'll direct this to Peter to start. So you've talked about all the change that you're experiencing, you have experienced. So what are some of the challenges that you're facing at IMG today and looking to tackle and innovate on head on?
Yeah, the challenges we see within ING, basically globally, we see that we come less to the office. And in a couple of months or the first year when pandemic started, we thought we would spend half of the time in the office. And last year when we came back to the office, every country was releasing all the pandemic rules. And what we then have seen, we measured all the presence in the buildings, and what we have seen that our staff was a little bit reluctant to come to the office. And and we are coming less to the office than expected, and it's balancing out nowadays. And I think looking at the global figures, and indeed there's a difference between Europe and Asia, but especially looking at Europe in general, I think we spent 25% of our time in the office. And this is quite different than what we would have expected. And then the challenge we see is how can we accommodate this, and how can we right size our portfolio? And then financials comes in, of course, because it's not only about workplaces and listening to the staff, but also financial. The financials are playing a huge role within the corporate portfolio. And how can we right size our portfolio to the demands? And basically what we see, if you only spend, let's say, 1 day per week in the office, how can we manage that not all the staff is coming the one preferred day to the office? Let's call it in the Netherlands and in different countries, a Thursday or a Tuesday is quite preferred, because Monday it's close to the weekend, Friday as well, and Wednesday sometimes kids are playing a role in that one. So Tuesday, Thursday is quite preferred days. And if you would all the 100% of our staff would come the 1 day to the office, then we have a problem. We really have a problem, because we try to right size portfolio to the time we are in the office. And this is challenging. It's empowering the teams and everyone, individual, but especially the teams, to come up with week schedules, to have some alignment with their neighbor on the floors. Just to check, hey guys, can we use the same floor but on different days? And do we have a week schedule? And can we solve it together with the people allocated to one floor? Not top down, but can we empower ourselves or the teams to come up with a solution? And this is the challenge we are seeing now. Yeah.
So it sounds like you're working with the different groups to really drive a collaborative approach instead of a top-down policy. It sounds like it's more ING's approach to engage with the different teams, the different locations within the office, and have them collaborate and align together to bring approach that both matches their work as well as supports more of a equalizing of attendance. Does that sound right?
Yeah. To be honest, we were working in a great organization. We have a lot of freedom to organize ourselves. So basically, the guidance is now, you have the freedom to organize your day. You align with your team, and you come to the office on the team day. You have discussed upon and agreed upon, but you have a high level of freedom, and definitely staff loves this, likes this, a lot.
It's interesting too, because like from a cultural perspective, what you were talking about earlier, where people don't like being told necessarily what to do and not having a very hierarchical culture, definitely would make that like a greater challenge as well. But the other thing you said, which I thought was interesting, is that the financial perspective, right? I think if you looked at the problem you just stated from a outsider's point of view, you'd be like, oh, well, you're using the office 25% of the time. We can just get rid of 75% of the space. But then if everybody comes in, then you have this like other layer of problem. And that I think a financial analyst might look at it immediately and say like, oh, just cut 75% of the space. So there goes the spend. It's like not you can't really do that.
No. And we know there will always be differences in the weekdays, but we really try to monitor that one. And that's also the point when censoring and measuring, and we have also security access batching information every day. So we are monitoring every day what is the amount of people coming to the office, what compared to the amount of people allocated to the building. Can we fine tune? Can we right size portfolio?
Yeah, it sounds like you're using like a multitude of different tools and strategies. Have you said you're using obviously badging, data, and other layers of information. How do you balance that? Like, because you're looking at qualitative information a little bit, like, obviously employee feedback, information from employees and things of that nature, and like more people-centric information. And then there's the quantitative information like badging, sensors, and those things. How do you balance those two things? And like what stacks of information are you looking at for each?
Yeah, I could touch upon that. So I think it's always like on the one hand, employee feedback can be based on sentiment. It might not always be correct. Sometimes, of course, it's a feeling. People might have the feeling there's not enough meeting rooms, while our insights tell us there's more than sufficient number of meeting rooms. But this can have multiple scenarios. It might be that all meeting rooms are reserved, people do not show up. So there's a lot of aspects to take it from. I think an interesting example we had earlier in the year, Insights told us that the most popular area to work was the desk. And ING is like, you come back to the office to collaborate. So what's going wrong here? Why are the meeting rooms not better used? And when we stumbled upon that information, we went on site and we actually saw people using the desks as meeting rooms because it was so quiet. People just could stay sitting at their desk with their team and they collaborated at their desk. So then the data would have told us desks are more popular, but actually people are performing an activity that was previously held in meeting rooms. So I think we always need to be concise. How do we use the data? How do we interpret the data? Check with it real life. By, I think, bringing them together is where the value lies.
That's really interesting. And you can see that behavior shift that has happened in terms of how people are using desk space and what they're using it for and how that's evolving, and being able to understand that by leveraging your analysis. So let's dig into that. It's my understanding that ING and you both have been very sophisticated in terms of how you've brought quantitative analysis to your work in order to really make sure you have strong insights to drive your decisions. Can you talk a little bit about what your data ecosystem looks like, what you've invested in, and why you've made those choices?
No, I think like previously we had the access data. That's something that we've known for a long time. We know how many people are in the building. At least we should also be considering we're operating as a global multinational. We have different information and different data granularity for all sites, and maybe even difference between countries. So this is also why we look at data that a data need from one building or one site or one country might be completely different than others, and you have like a base layer. So I think we look at multiple scenarios where the highest level of granularity is building level. Do you know how many people are in the building? Furthermore, we could look at how many people are on each floor. You could also divide floors in separate zones, whereas like the most detailed level is actually what we experimented with in one of our buildings, having every single detail. So we know, is a lounge area more popular than a desk area? Is a collaboration meeting room with a whiteboard more popular than just the ones with the Teams audio device. So really understanding each single component or in every single space type that ING employees might use. So we're making a division, and I think we're also comparing access data with like how many people, how long are they in the office? Are they actually there for the whole day, or they're just partially there? Based, for example, on parking data, we can also see people are there only for 5 or 6 hours a day for some part of our colleagues. I think that's also an interesting concept. People might work partially at home and then work in the office, and might work a little bit longer from home later on to evade the traffic jams. I think it's also a big problem in California, especially in LA, I think, Omar. So these are things we also have to take in consideration, like how does it work? So what Peter was saying, we're trying to optimize the experience of the user, and by gathering the insights how they use the office, we can slowly transition to optimize this office. And also for a new office we're developing, this very valuable input, because now it's all based on a best estimate. How many desks you need, how many meeting rooms you need. There's nothing better than having the information you can rely upon to make such decisions.
My topic always is, when we have the discussion about what to do with all the data, is can we learn something from the behavior? Can we see within the data some learnings, findings, and can we see some behavior? And we can already see this with the access control. We know already what is the average length of a working day. Are we working mainly 3 hours part-time or full days? And when we go to a higher level of detail, higher granularity, and using also the sensory data, we discover really huge valuable information on behavior. How people use a desk, which is different from pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. How many times we sit in a meeting room, and basically also is the use different pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. Do we need more space, which is also an important element in the right size of the portfolio. When we are in the office nowadays, do we need more space than before? And we found out that when we are now in the office, we are really more mobile, internally mobile. We are hopping around in the office than in the pre-pandemic situation. So really, we have changed our way of using the office.
Has there been anything in the process, and it sounds like you've had some surprises, but is there anything in the process that really surprised you as you're going through the effort of reconsidering your workplace and understanding the future for ING? What has jumped out at you and surprised you, either in the data or in your actual work?
Yeah, to start with some figures. As I said, we try to right size our portfolio to the needs. And the portfolio nowadays in Amsterdam is right sized to accommodate the 50% of your time working in the office. It's quite. And what we see, as I said, we only tend to spend 25%. Basically, this means that we have some kind of oversupply in office space. And when you're coming to the office, you have double the space. And what we found out is that basically all the meeting rooms are quite good occupied. And half of the desks are empty. This means also, and looking at the censoring data as well, and if we translate this to a theoretical need for a future need, what we see is that we need the double of amount of meeting space, and that we also, when we are in the office, people like to take a desk for the full day, just to sit in the neighborhood of their team, to have some osmotic conversation. So there's really a need to sit together with your colleague, but also to hop around and to easily find a meeting room to have the hybrid calls and meetings. But we definitely need more meeting rooms. That's what we see. That's really the first finding. And we thought from the start, when we were rethinking our concept, that people would come to the office and really only would some kind of, especially when you only come one day to the office, you would only come to the office to have some socializing events or to meet your colleagues. No need for individual desk, but contrary, we like to work individually with our team, and in the same time we like to have a lot of meeting rooms. So what we see, people are spending less time in the office, so we can decrease portfolio. But when you are in the office, you need a little bit more space than before pandemic. So it's not keeping in the balance, but you need more space. But in general, in total, portfolio will decrease.
That's interesting. And it sounds like right sizing is something that's very top of mind for you, Peter. I'm curious, for any of our listeners and viewers that may be new to the right sizing strategy, and that might be a new principle or practice to them, and they're just getting started thinking about how to apply these techniques to their own portfolio, to give you an opportunity to be a teacher, what guidance or recommendations would you give? And Remco, feel free to add color as well to those looking to get started with right sizing for the first time. What do they need? What should their first steps be?
Basically, it was the same pre-pandemic as post-pandemic. Try to understand your client, organizational charge, surveys, workshops. So more the soft sides in understanding the staff, also understanding the strategy, but also understanding the use of the space, how people actually use the space, and not how they think. You can also, having the survey, how would you think to use the space, but also compare this with the actual data, and also have this open discussion with them. And basically, most of the times there is a gap between what people think they would use and need to have, and what they are really using.
Yeah, so bringing together these great conversations you have to understand their needs, complementing that with actual usage data so you can see where the difference might be in terms of how they perceive reality and what reality is in that data, and then having those conversations. That makes a lot of sense. And then have there been, I guess, for you, any plans for either office consolidation? Is that a priority for you, or are you using your space differently based off of those behavior changes?
Now, the priority is try to understand what are the differences, what will change, and how can we define the new concept, and based on the new concept, the new portfolio needs, and can be different for each country. By the way, we see a lot of differences. So from coming from one, we always had one global policy, and we try to localize one global policy. But what we see nowadays is really we will have different local policies, because behavior is also changing, and the range of behavior and solutions is becoming bigger than the pre-pandemic. For instance, in the pre-pandemic, also in the Netherlands, the desk sharing ratio was around 80, max or lowest 70, 75. So it was between, we provide for 100 persons, 70 to 100 desks. This was the range. What we see today is 30 desks for 100 people allocated to a building. Or in some countries, if local policies or local legislation is requiring or forcing people to come every day to the office, could be, then everyone needs a desk, of course. So the range is quite larger than before.
Yeah, that's I think also the company culture aspect, right? Because it's not really a given that I think there's a lot of companies in the Netherlands, they went back into the old way, so they're back in the office almost every day of the week. And I think if you look at these theories, X and Y theory, we see at ING a lot of X leadership, which stands for X leadership stands for the enforcing, like based everything you work is based on results. And I think at ING we see a lot of Y leadership, where managers are motivating their employees for job satisfaction. And so there's a lot of autonomy for people to do their work, which has translated in the fact that people are less into the office. But I think, Peter, we are trying to vouch for making the office day at work the best experience you can have in the week. So that's also a new challenge, right? So if you're only once in a week in the office, you really want to optimize that experience the day you're there.
Yeah, it better be good when you are in the office. That's also the message. Yeah. The office should be really, otherwise there's no target.
People stay at home, yeah.
Yeah, no benefit to come to the office. Yeah, it better be good.
Yeah, you have to have like that good that one day better be a good experience for the employees. Otherwise, it's all lost.
Yeah.
And you see also the demand has gone up, right? So people have a certain expectation. So they're like, I was in the office every day of the week, but it seems like people completely forgot about it. And now they're coming back and they're like, this is not good enough. I want to have perfect coffee. Like all the amenities need to be aligned. So we're really up for a challenge, but I think we're not shy from it. So we will try to deliver that experience and even try to surpass it.
Yeah. For instance, queuing for coffee. Yeah, I don't have to queue at home for coffee.
Well, I think everyone's kind of created this optimized experience for themselves, and now they understand what their needs are more than ever. And so we, as workplace providers and people who are creating solutions, have to meet those new needs and those new levels of requirements, because everyone's optimized their home setups. Like we obviously all have optimized our home setups at this point. As we're on this call, we all have great backgrounds, we all have good microphones, we all have good headphones. It all works. Peter's artwork is better than the rest of ours for those listening. And not viewing.
Thank you.
It's true. I'm jealous. I have this terrible blank spot here, and I need to get some recommendations from Peter so I can fill that in.
You do have the nice classical elements, I think, to your house, so it must be a bit older.
Thank you. And so a question we'd love to leave you with, and love to hear both of your takes. Maybe we'll start with Remco and then we'll go to Peter. Knowing what you know now and how much we've learned, think back, what is something that you might have done differently in the past with the new set of information you have now? So Remco, why don't we start with you and then we'll go with Peter.
Yeah, I think definitely. So I think upfront, there's a famous quote like, think big, start small, move fast. Sometimes you think big, you also start big. But I think that's where the challenge comes from. I think we're still trying to predict the future. We do not know how people are going to work in 1 or 2 years. But the only thing we know for certain, change is inevitable. And changes are coming more rapidly and faster than ever before. And I think in the past, people used to say like necessity is the mother of invention. But actually, Jared Diamond, he's a famous historian. He actually said, invention can also be the mother of necessity. So I think for us, within the workplace, we also need to experiment. Can we be front runners and show people how working in the office can be done, instead of waiting for them to request, like, I want this type of office, I want this type of meeting room. No, maybe we should also try to experiment and be far out there in the playing field by offering something that is unheard of, but might be a new solution. And I think definitely the role of a workplace strategist has become much more important than it might have been previously.
That's interesting. So trying to anticipate those needs in advance and running experiments, because you might actually land on an amenity or a decision that actually addresses a need even more than what they might have requested previously. That's really powerful. That's great. And Peter, what about you? What is something you might have done differently?
It's really important. It's not about data, but it's understanding data. It's really seeing behavior behind the figures. Try to see what the figures are telling us. And this is so important. It's not because censoring and data it's a multitude of data you receive every day, every hour. But the challenge is to see through the figures and to understand the people behind the figures.
Yeah, it's to Remco's point. It's expecting change. And as you're analyzing that data and looking for new data you may need and new ways to interpret to make sure you're continuing to bring those changes, both new decisions as well as new ways of understanding and leveraging what you have. Well, Peter, Remco, this was a fantastic conversation. Thank you for digging in with us, sharing some of the great lessons you've had in your careers and at ING in terms of bringing this important data and analysis and these strategies over your fantastic career. So we've learned a lot. I think our listeners have too, and it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you.
Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure to participate.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hey there, this is Omar Ramirez, co-host of the True Understanding podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star review to help us expand our reach and grow our community of workplace leaders. If you'd like to suggest a topic or guest, please drop us a line at trueunderstanding.vergesense.com. The True Understanding podcast is created by VergeSense. Over 130 global companies rely on VergeSense for a true understanding of how their workplaces are used, so they can continuously and confidently optimize spaces to reduce costs and improve employee experiences.